Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Be My Guest. I'm your host, David Mignato, and you are looking at a little bit of a different background than I usually have. I know it kind of was washed out, so it may look like I'm coming to you from a white light type of situation, but I'm actually in the Catskill Mountains. And if you can see my background, this is such an amazing place to be. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. We're up here doing a show for No Vacancy Live, which is, of course, the other podcast that I work on. This particular episode probably won't come out for about months because we have so many great episodes in the tank. But you see the snow behind me. By the time this comes out, that's probably all going to be melted. This is one of the hottest places in New York. You may not have heard about it if you're not from the area. Like our guest Kyle said, he never has. He's from Chicago. But we're going to educate you. Check out No Vacancy Live from today. Today is February 8th. That's when we're actually recording this. So go back and check out because this is an amazing property up here called Resorts World Catskills, casino, resort, entertainment venues, so many great things going on. And of course, you can see this amazing view right behind me. If I knew which way to point, you really cannot beat it, especially as people are getting back out. And hopefully as this vaccine takes hold, we are going to see so much pent-up demand explode that places are not going to know what to do. ADRs are going to be through the roof. And all of us are going to be back to work. And we've had so many great conversations from so many people in the industry. Today is no exception. Have you ever heard of Hospitality M.D? If you haven't, you should. It's a great show. Another podcast talking about hospitality, founded by my friend Kyle Allison, who we've gotten contact through on LinkedIn. Again, we talk on this show a lot about networking, growing your network, getting out there and reaching other people, whether it's through LinkedIn or other channels, and really just developing professional relationships. It's so important, especially nowadays. And that's what Kyle and I have been able to do. I was on his show already, so he has agreed to return the favor and be my guest. So Kyle, how are you today, my friend?
David, hello, my friend. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here. I love your show.
Oh, thanks. And, I really appreciate you joining me today and having me on your show. Although you got me first, I appreciate you giving me the reciprocal visit. So, Kyle, we could just jump right into things. You started your own podcast called Hospitality M.D, and you had a lot of things as you're developing that. You have recently received the holy grail of LinkedIn Live, so congratulations on that. It's not easy.
Oh my God! After years of applying, I swear it actually it's very difficult, at least in my experience, to after applying for, I probably applied double-digit times before I got it. So it feels good. Really looking forward to taking advantage of that because that's where the main audience is. LinkedIn is where, granted, there's a lot of cool stuff on Facebook, but LinkedIn is where it's at. So happy to be there.
Well, again, congratulations. So, Kyle, let's just kind of hear about who you are, right? We'll talk about Hospitality M.D in a little bit, but how did you get into the industry overall? Where did you start off? Were you in hotels? Give me kind of your background.
Yeah. Hospitality has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Honestly, like thinking back to my childhood, I feel like I didn't know at the time that it's what I wanted to do, kind of similar to you, but it eventually came to fruition. My mom is a flight attendant with United Airlines. She has been for almost 40 years now. Wow. And yeah, she got that job when she was 21 years old, the youngest you could possibly be to be a flight attendant, and she's never done anything else. So I've been so lucky that I've been able to fly with her. So there were times when she would just be going to work, and I would fly with her on the plane because I could go for free and just fly, and then we would lay over and then come back. So the feeling that I would get going to the airport, going to O'Hare Airport, being in the airport, seeing everybody traveling, it makes you just feel so important, I guess, like especially when you're a kid. And at the time, United Airlines had a dress code for everybody who was flying under like an employee pass. So I would have to wear kind of like business casual clothes. Like I would be looking the same. I'd be like a mini business traveler in the way that I was dressed as a young pup going with my mom. So you feel important, you get dressed up. It's an occasion. You go on the airplane and then you get to see different hotels and everything. And for as long as I can remember, like I said, it's been just such an incredible feeling. The branding of it all too, just because even at a young age, I started to get a feel for like, okay, this is a Hilton, and this is a Hilton Garden Inn. This is a, Town Place Suites. This is that. Like, I just started to pick up on it over the years, and it just became super, super fascinating for me. And that's kind of how I initially like set foot into being aware of hospitality. Flash forward to when I was 17, it was kind of time for me to start working. And I was looking around at jobs, but my mom, she knew what I wanted, and she actually applied for my hotel job, my first ever job for me. She didn't tell me, she just did it.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mom. Really, I really owe a whole lot of my hospitality DNA and just everything to my mom. So she applied for me. So I get a call, and I found out later that she applied for like nearly every open position that the hotel had at the time.
Where was this hotel?
So this was the Hilton Indian Lakes Resort in Bloomingdale, Illinois. Okay. Formerly a Hilton, I should say. It's since lost its flag, unfortunately. But I actually grew up 5 minutes away from the hotel. So I would always drive by it. I was fascinated by it. I've actually stayed there before as a kid just for fun with my parents. So it just made sense. Like, why wouldn't I work at the resort that's right around the corner from my house? So I get a call from HR, and they're saying, we want to bring you in for an interview as guest service representative. I had no idea what that even was. I thought it was like a call center, really had no clue what it was going to be. But I obliged on the phone, pretended like I knew what was going on. And then sure enough, had a couple interviews, and I met my now Hospitality M.D. producer, co-host, and business partner, Greg. He was actually the person who hired me at that hotel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We've been riding or dying together for a very long time. So it was his first department head job. He was the front office manager, had just come from the Hilton O'Hare to this Indian Lakes resort. His first day on the job, he interviewed me, hired me, and we've been together ever since. We worked at several hotels, and that was the start. 17, working the front desk.
So you're currently not in a hotel right now, right? And that's
unfortunately not. Yeah, as of August of 2020, after the pandemic hit, I'm no longer working in a hotel. It breaks my heart every day that I don't have a place to go into. But that's why I still try to be involved as much as I can.
So what was your last role prior to COVID?
My last role was front office manager at the Wit Hotel, which is a 310-room boutique DoubleTree hotel located on one of the busiest intersections in downtown Chicago.
Okay. So again, you're a hotel lifer, and even if you didn't necessarily know that was what you wanted to get into, again, similar to the story that we talked about when I was on your show, traveling was a part of my life. When I was young, I loved it, loved staying at hotels, and it never really occurred to me that, hey, this could be a calling and something that I'm really passionate about. So you're working your way up through the ranks, you're having great success in an industry that you love. Then March hits, and I've asked this question to almost everybody we've had on this show. What's going through your head as everything is starting to take place?
I just got chills as you said, and March hits, because it's such a emotional response, right? It takes you way back, a little bit traumatizing in a way as well with everything that went down. But from the beginning, I knew that there was history in the making for the hotel industry. I just had this feeling, and before everything like completely died, I knew that we were making history. I just remember that when it started, it started out slowly, but very quickly at the same time. So it was like, okay, we're going to start training our staff on what to do if somebody mentions this weird Chinese coronavirus that we don't even know much about it. All we know is that somebody might ask us, they might be afraid, but they're going to be in the minority of people. It might be one person, it might be zero, but we are just going to start talking about it with the team during pre-shift. We're going to start leaving, the cylinders of Lysol wipes that you can pull out on top of the front desk. We started doing these things prematurely before AHLA came out with Safe Stay, before Hilton came out with Clean Stay, and all the brands came out with their stuff. We were already leaving the Lysol on the counters, wiping things down, and having some verbiage about, we use hospital grade disinfectants to clean our guest rooms. We're wiping down surfaces every 30 minutes in the lobby. If you want to know more about what we're doing on a wide level of across the hotel, including food and beverage, let me grab a manager for you. That was the script that we gave to the front desk team and to every other line level associate. So started out kind of like that. And before we knew it, man, there's actually so many interesting stories. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I actually hired a bellman, and his first day, I don't remember exactly what day it was. His first day, I come in, I get him started. He's doing some computer training, getting onboarded, and I go up to my 9 a.m. stand-up meeting, and then afterward immediately to the rooms division meeting that we have daily, and it was the GM and all the rooms department heads. And afterward, everybody leaves the meeting, and it's just me and the GM, and he says, you're gonna have to let go of this bellman. He's like, we don't usually operate like this, but I just don't see a way in which all the bellmen who are tenured, they've been here, we can't be fighting over hours with this. And I said, okay, it's good that you say this now, because I just talked to him and he hasn't quit his other job yet. He was planning on working both. So just the right time. As much as I felt terrible, I said,
He still
Frank,
has something, yeah.
He had something. And I said, okay, I can work with this. And he took it so well. He understood it was unprecedented, right? Sure enough, a few days later, he ended up losing his job. As I found out, that hotel actually closed. But at that point, everybody was in the same situation, so it wouldn't have mattered. But I knew that we were in big trouble there.
And that's the tough part about it, right? Is that, especially when it comes to labor hours, typically a downturn is a drawn out process, right? So you see through forecasting and through demand changes, you can kind of see the downturn happening, outside of an event like 9/11, of course. This was an event where there was nothing that happened specifically. Like 9/11 was an event, obviously a major event that happened. Everybody in the world knew it. It was a visible, tangible event that we all saw. The coronavirus was not that. It's not something that's just it's just there, but you're not seeing it in the air. You're not seeing it on TV. It's not being broadcast on all the internet channels. There's nothing visible to really see, nothing really tangible. So you don't expect that to have such a devastating impact like that, right? Where hotels are losing all of their top line and over the course of a week and a half, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
These decisions are having to be made almost in real time, because the devastating effects of all of this are so unprecedented that you can't wait. You literally just can't wait to figure that out, because if you wait even a day too long, you're talking about $1 million gone out the window, right? And then you start to talk about, can we continue to feasibly operate as a company? And unfortunately, a lot of hotels have not been able to do that. So you stayed on until August. Now, were you working the entire time, or they furloughed you and you just kind of stayed part of the company?
Nope, I was working up until August.
So how did you keep your team motivated? I'm assuming there was probably furloughs and layoffs at your desk, and you're obviously having to take on more responsibilities, and I'm sure working the stories you've heard from everybody, right?
Right.
The crazy hours, the difficult guests. How did you keep your team and yourself motivated?
So it's a good question. The majority of people working were managers, or at one point had been managers and then either chose to go back to their original positions, or as a result of coronavirus had been like demoted to an hourly position kind of in the meantime. But and don't get me wrong, there were some people that were not. So one of the things that was great about working at the WIT was we had such a strong core pre-COVID. It was seriously like a family. So the thing that really kept us going was not only that family, but we always said to ourselves, let's run this hotel, let's do this, and we're going to do the right thing so we can bring our friends back. That was the motivation. We thought we really at that how naive we were right at that time. But at the beginning, we really thought if we just work hard and do the right thing, we should be able to bring our friends back to work in no time. We can do this. We'll hold it down for them and we'll welcome them back with open arms when it's time for everybody to return back to work. I think now I never really believed it because like I think a lot of people got caught up in they thought that one day in like May, right at the time that a red carpet would be rolled out and everybody who used to work at the hotel would pull up in a bus and get off the bus, walk into the front door, and everything would be completely back to normal, just like that.
Right.
And people really believed that. Unfortunately, I didn't quite think that it was going to be that easy. But I had no idea it was going to be this bad. But I knew that there was a possibility, hey, if we do the right thing, maybe we can start to bring back our friends. And that was kind of what kept us motivated throughout the whole time. We were all in it together. I was actually living at the hotel at the time. So I basically essentially never left the hotel for a good 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
But for me, to keep me motivated, that I knew that this was history in the making for the hotel industry. I knew that, you know, when I'm a 75-year-old hotelier, I'm going to remember and think back to the time that the worst crisis ever recorded in the hotel industry was taking place. And I was living and working at least through part of it at the hotel. And that kept me motivated because I knew that something special was happening, not necessarily in a good way, but it was special.
Yeah. And I mean, you being in Chicago, right in the downtown heart of Chicago, I was in downtown Manhattan, two of the locations that were hit the hardest, right? I mean, New York was probably hit the hardest of anybody in the country when this whole thing started. I don't think Chicago is probably too far behind any of these really main primary cities, especially, and unfortunately it does have to take a part of politics, but especially in some of these Democratic states, these primary cities, they got devastated from case rates. And again, I'm not sitting. I should preface this by saying this is not a political ploy or a political comment on what is right or wrong. Everybody has their own opinions. I'm just saying that, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, a lot of these decisions have been made along political lines, from terms of staying open, full closures. It is what it is. So Chicago, being a very Democratic city, New York being a very Democratic city, opted to close very heavily. Probably was the right decision, especially early on. And then you can figure it out from there if it still is or not. I'm not getting into that. But how was your occupancy? Like, did you guys just lose everything? Like like in New York, we lost everything. It was gone. We're talking about, we're running occupancies of 10% in Lower Manhattan. And that 10% is literally just Hotel Tonight drive-in market. Like, we're not talking about any actual sustainable type of guest. Was Chicago the same way?
It was. I remember first order of business this was kind of as we started laying people off and kind of forming the skeleton crew. My GM said, go downstairs, go back to the front office, and I want you to make me like a sample schedule for 30% all week, 50% on weekends, and then another one 10% all week, 30% on weekends. So I did that, but I also made another one because I knew it wasn't going to be like that. I made one that was sub 10% all week. And that's kind of what we used to kind of model what labor we were going to have. And we ended up getting our skeleton crew. Obviously I was, fortunate enough to be a part of it. Once that actually actualized, it turns out that sub 10% was where we landed. Yeah. There were days that we were 3% occupancy, 1.9% occupancy. I mean, it was very, very, very slow. And again, same thing. The guests that we did have were just people from the inner city who were staying at the hotel who came to downtown and just wanted to take advantage of the cheaper rates or just kind of get out of the house a little bit. We had at one point, thank God, well, not necessarily for the situation, but we had the Willis Tower, or the Sears Tower as we know it in Chicago, the largest tower in the city, flooded. The basement did. They had several layers of basements, and all the power went out in the entire tower, and it was like this big disaster, right? So a restoration crew actually came in and they stayed with us for like a couple months. And that was
what was the party you threw for your sales manager for landing that piece of business?
Well, I was actually like the convention services manager for that group. Sales had nothing to do with it. It started out as 2 rooms, and through genuine hospitality and, you know, just being creative, they built and built and built, and they decided to stay with us the entire time, even though we were further away from the site that they were working at than really many of the other properties. And that was as a result of hospitality, no sales managers involved. We made them feel welcome, made them feel good. And that was probably 2 months worth of valet charges, which you know how expensive valet can be, plus $99 rates, weekly stay over service. That was all we had to do for them, was every week clean their rooms. And it was a great piece of business while it lasted.
Just to recap it.
Yeah.
If I understand it right, 2 rooms happened to stay with you by themselves. You at the front desk were able to then turn that into a 2-month piece of business because you interacted with them properly at the front desk. Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely right. And one of the main project managers I'm actually still connected with to this day. We talk all the time. Turns out he actually does, and I didn't know this at the time, but he actually does nightlife and food and beverage consulting. So we may find an opportunity to work together on hospitality projects in the future as well. So you just never know who you're dealing with and what the results of just being warm and genuine can be like. Because their initial intention was just to kind of crash there. They didn't really know Chicago well.
Yeah.
And then they were going to see, okay, is there a place closer that we can stay at? Is there another option? Do we bring more people in? Whatever. And then they were like, we're not staying anywhere else. We're going to stay here.
That's amazing. I mean, listen, I've been a big proponent of going back to when I was with the Candlewood Suites, that sales is front desk is such an important extension of sales, and sales leaders in hotels, you know, whether you're still working in hotels or you need to get back into the industry as a sales leader, you really, really need to make it a priority to engage the front desk, work with the front desk, empower the front desk, reward the front desk, because you really would be surprised at how much business is able to be brought in just from the front desk, having a proper conversation, properly probing the guests, asking simple questions like, what brings you to the area, right? That's my favorite question. What brings you to the area? Oh, you know, we're here to do a project. Oh, what's the project? Well, we're fixing the Sears Tower flood. How many people are you with? Oh, we have a crew of 20, but they're all staying there. Well, that's how that conversation starts, right?
And Kyle, it may have been very similar. I don't remember exactly, but it sounds pretty much how it went down over the course of a few days of it wasn't like I just checked them in and then they were on their own. It was, we stayed in touch, and we were, you know, it was a long-term relationship, and they were only meant to stay for a couple of days. And 2 months later, another thing happened. The riots that occurred in the city after George Floyd passed away. They were there for that. And so our hotel, the Wit, got completely destroyed by all the windows broken. We had people looting our bar and restaurant.
Were you working at the time?
I was working at the time.
So how did you handle that?
Man, I will give the majority of the credit to the hotel's director of security, Curtis. He was honestly heroic in this. He stacked furniture in front of the door, basically barricaded the front door. He basically made sure that everybody knew the plan in advance, because we knew that something was going to go down that day. We just had a feeling. So once it started to get a little bit wild outside, barricaded the door with furniture, locked every single entry point into the hotel. The PA system for the hotel, he would continuously update the guests about the condition. Like at first it was like, we recommend that you stay indoors given the conditions or what's going on outside. And then I remember boom, glass broke and they had entered into the restaurant. They finally breached the building, and everybody basically was huddling in the back office. We had a couple frying pans, just in case somebody tried to break in. We had a fire extinguisher that we had mounted on like a step stool that, we were kind of gonna, in case somebody came in to spray them and try and slow them down. In the back office, right off the lobby, is kind of where the existing employees were staying. So Curtis, we heard that they busted in, could hear him squirming around in there. And he remained in the lobby to the last moment on the PA with the guests. He said, intruders have breached the building, shelter in place in your guest rooms until further notice. Do not come down to the lobby under any circumstances. And then he hauled ass to the back office door. We were in there, we opened it up, let him come in, and then closed the door again for him. And I just, one of the very, very, I think one of the most powerful days of my hotel career was working through that.
Of course.
Because I remember after this probably started around 7:00. We actually had the intersection we were on was the epicenter of the riots. There was a CPD squad car that was torched literally right outside the front door of the building. I'll send you pictures afterward of what the scene actually looked like. We had a CPD car that was torched right outside the door, all the windows broken. The law enforcement could not secure the area for probably, from the moment that we got breached, probably took over an hour for law enforcement to secure the intersection.
Wow.
And once they finally did, the hotel was serving its purpose in the community beyond what just charging a rate and staying people. I remember we had law enforcement, right, which it was kind of the whole situation, right, it was protesters versus law enforcement, but both parties were seeking refuge at the hotel because law enforcement was coming in. We were giving them cases of water so they could take them out to the people who were on the front lines at the time who couldn't take a break. People were coming in to use the bathroom. They were coming in to eat. Even though we had no windows, we were still making it a hospitable experience for law enforcement to be able to find refuge in the hotel at the time. Alternatively, like I remember one specific person. She was actually a black lady, a protester. She had a sign in her hand. She was standing outside the hotel, but it was basically the inside was outside at that point. But she was standing outside the barrier on the street, looking into the lobby, and she was crying. And I remember I was walking by, I don't know if I was trying to clean something up or do something. And she stopped me and she was crying like, hello, can you help me? She was like, this turned out like, this was not what I expected it to be. Like she was just distraught. She was basically having a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I actually, this is my regret, is I actually at one point lost my purpose for a second. I said, like, can't you see I have some other things I got to be worried about right now? Something along those lines, because I was basically like, look around, like I've got more important things to worry about. And I regret that. And, and I walked away, and then I stopped and I said, you know what? No, this is not hospitality. That was wrong. So I turned around and I said, how can I assist you? What can I do for you? And she said, my phone is dead and I'm just lost. I lost my friends and everything. And, so I took her phone and I charged it for her, and that was all she needed. And she just needed somebody to listen to her, somebody to be there for her. But
just feel support.
She needed hospitality, and she had sought out hospitality at a hotel despite this essentially it was a state of emergency. The entire city was destroyed, and she sought out refuge at a hotel, which is a major part of the community. So we had protesters, one side of kind of the obviously it was that kind of law enforcement versus protesters, as at least that's how it was kind of advertised. So we had one side and the other side simultaneously seeking refuge at the hotel. And I think that was the most powerful thing that I probably worked through in my career, because it really was like, no matter what happens, hotels are the center stone of the community. And this is what our responsibility should be to the community, no matter what the circumstances are.
And let me say, good for you for recognizing, your mistake right there and being able to kind of man up to it and just saying, hey, this is not something I'm proud of, but it's something that I did and I regret it, because we all make mistakes, especially in a time like that where there's just so much going on. I don't think anybody would have begrudged you if you said, I'm sorry, I can't right this very second, and then kept it moving. I mean,
Right.
I can't imagine somebody would really have been like, wow, Kyle doesn't understand the hospitality. But the fact that you caught yourself and said, hey, no, wait a minute, this is a person that needs help. I need to help them. It just shows how hospitality really is in your DNA. So kudos to you for recognizing that you made a mistake and being able to fix it in a timely manner. I mean, listen, it's just, at the basic level, that's service recovery, right? So
yeah, that's exactly right.
Service recovery. So kudos to you on that. And it's a powerful story. I mean, and I guess again, the riots after the George Floyd tragedy certainly were powerful in their own right, but also very independent of the COVID pandemic, right? So in one way, because COVID had zapped all of your occupancy, you weren't a hotel in downtown Chicago running 95% while this is all taking place. Would have probably been a much different situation than what you currently had to deal with. Not that what you had to deal with wasn't hard or scary or difficult, because you still had guests you needed to protect, but it would probably be a lot more complicated had it been a 95% occupancy bustling hotel, especially at 7:00 as people are checking in, they're going out for dinner, they're at the restaurant, right? It's a different scenario. So how did you guys deal with the guests that were there? How did you make them feel safe? How did you deal with their service recovery questions after the fact? What was kind of the follow-up to all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it was truly unlike anything that I had ever had to deal with. But I was the MOD at the time. I was kind of running the show. I was working 7 p.m. through the overnight. I think I was there till 8 or 9 the next morning. So throughout that time, it was actually right after all this happened, I went out into the lobby. I actually, I don't work there anymore, so the owner or GM hears this, but I lit a cigarette in the lobby. The outside was inside, and I had a cigarette hanging out of my mouth, and I was on the phone. And I called all the remaining arrivals, and I said, there is absolutely no way that you'll even be able to make it to the hotel. Like, the streets are blocked off. You will not make it here. And I said, our sister property, which was in the same management company, was in a location that was still accessible via the street. So I said, you could go there. But I was like, the city is no place anybody wants to be right now.
Yeah.
You should just not stay here. I was like very blunt about the whole thing. I was like, the hotel is in ruins. The streets are blocked off. Just not a good time. Let's reschedule you or cancel you. And people were actually more sympathetic to me than I was to them. They were like, oh my God, what, are you okay? Everything that happened. I was like, it's fine.
Because this is a national news story, right? It's not something that just, it happens and nobody hears about. This is on everybody's cell phone. It's on all the breaking news notifications. I mean, this is a national story. So,
right. So when I told them that it was actually the hotel that they were planning on staying at was actually at the center of what they were seeing on the news, it was very easy for them to just accept that and not show up. Right. So that was kind of what we did for the remaining arrivals. For the guests in-house, like I said, we gave them the very clear instructions via the PA system not to come down to the lobby under any circumstances during the actual interaction. And then once all that had kind of slowed down, the restoration crew that was staying with us, I actually met up with some of the leaders and I said, hey, can you guys do, because we had somebody that was in our network of people that could have helped us board up the windows and restore the area. but I said, why don't we have them already staying with us. So our relationship with that team grew so strong when they actually, just like we were there to show hospitality for them when they were coming in, they returned the favor. And we probably had our windows boarded up at the Wit faster than any other place in the whole city as a result of their quick action. They were riding or dying for us. They were doing this till probably 1 a.m. They were boarding up windows. We were feeding them. We were all together doing it, hotel and restoration team together as one. And so we, they were there for that. The guests who were in-house, we tried to feed them as much as we could with what little food we did have. But it was tough because a lot of the people who were working were very traumatized afterward, and they didn't really. I remember our GM, our executive chef was actually working at the time, and GM called me. I was going through and he said, okay, let me talk to chef. And he said, hey, chef, you need to go downstairs into the kitchen and start making sandwiches for everybody. And he was pissed. He was like, I just went through this like traumatizing experience, and now you want me to go downstairs and start making sandwiches for people? He's like, screw this, I'm going home. And I don't blame him for that at all. I actually think that I was going to ask out of line, but yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, sorry to cut you off, but my follow-up question, you're kind of touching on it already, is at any point after this is happening, do you kind of say to yourself, hey, this may be too much
for me to deal with?
Yeah, just for you. Like, at any point were you like, man, between COVID and now this, like, I need to step back for a minute? Because I don't think anybody would have blamed you. I don't think anybody blames your exec chef for walking out.
As crazy as it was, and this is where I think it's like my greatest strength in hospitality, but one of my biggest weaknesses when it comes to having worked for different management companies. I actually felt that the best place that I could be in the world was at the hotel. Like I said earlier, I take it very seriously, when that tragedy was occurring and we had the refuge of law enforcement, protesters, everybody. I really felt connected to that purpose. And I said, there's nowhere else in the world that I want to be other than right here, making sure that everybody's safe, making sure that the associates who are having to bear the weight of this can go home to their families. It was me and Curtis, the director of security. We rode out the rest of the whole night. We made sure everybody got home safe and everybody was good, and we kind of wrote it out. I knew again, it was like history's in the making yet again here at the hotel. And I knew that my purpose was to be at the hotel. So at no point did I ever feel like I need to get out of here. My home was the hotel. That's where I was living at the time. Yeah, so it was either go up to my room and, for what, or I could really align with my purpose and serve the community in the hotel.
That's a really a wild story. And it's not, it's one that a lot of people have had to deal with as hoteliers in some of these major cities. Especially back in the summer, but it's one that not many of us can relate to because most of us will never have to deal with something like that. So kudos to you and your team for getting through that. I can only imagine how scary it was. But kind of transitioning from a very somber topic and a very real topic to back to more of the lighthearted, fun stuff. So I want to transition to Hospitality M.D. because we're coming up on time here already. It's just such a fast conversation, but you mentioned you have been trying to get on LinkedIn Live for years now, earlier at the show. So, and I'm not too familiar with Hospitality M.D.'s history, so I'm going to learn about it right now along with everybody else. But clearly you've had that show going prior to this show, right? This show was only born out of COVID because I am not working. You have been working on Hospitality M.D. prior to that. Sounds like correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So why don't you take us through Hospitality M.D.? Why did you start it, especially while you were still working, because COVID was not on anybody's minds at that point? What was the intention behind getting involved in podcasting?
So Hospitality M.D. started at, being inspired by Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you know who Gary V is, but his whole spiel, right? Start making content, stop overthinking it, just do it. So myself and Greg, my first manager, right, we were yet again working together at another hotel, which at this time happened to be the Wit. I worked there twice. I actually worked there, left, and then came back. So this is my first time working at the Wit. Greg and I were there together. And Greg had been doing a podcast with his son, who was like 9 years old at the time, called Backpack News. It's a great podcast, actually, it was where they produced news segments for kids. So it was easy for kids to actually consume the news via podcast. Great idea. But the problem that Greg had with it was when you're doing a podcast with a 9-year-old, he's not really helping out with any of the work. And it was kind of very, very difficult. So he said, all right, let's do something that I'm a little bit more passionate about, hospitality. He came up to me and he said, hey, do you want to start a hospitality podcast? I said, yes, I would love that. So we started out we actually weren't even a podcast when we started. We were a YouTube channel. We did like multicam, like well-produced, good audio, on location interviews with hoteliers in the Chicago area. So our first interview was the GM of London House Chicago, which actually to this day is our highest performing interview. Was our first one that we did.
Nice.
We did a couple other ones. And then unfortunately, because we were working at the same hotel in the same department, we just couldn't find the time to take off work at the exact same time, orchestrate in-person interviews. It just became too much. So it fell off the wagon for a little while. Then we came back and we said, wait a second, we can start using Squadcast or Zoom or something like that to start recording interviews virtually. So that's when it kind of transitioned to, we were doing the YouTube channel, but primarily it was podcasting. We started doing that. And since then it's been great. After both of us lost our jobs in August, this was after the hotel closed as a result of what had happened. We decided, you know what, let's just go heavy on Hospitality M.D. Let's just make that our full-time gig, and go from there. And that's where everything was established. So before it was just, we didn't even care. We were just doing it for fun. We're still doing it for fun, but we just care a little bit more now. And it's kind of, it's what we're doing. We may not be employed necessarily by a hotel, but we are still working, if you will, as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, listen, I totally get that feeling, right? Like I haven't technically been working since March 27th, right? But I've been working with Glenn and Anthony since March 28th. Now I don't get paid for the work with them, right? So it's not a quote unquote job, but it's something that I take a lot of pride in. I see it as continuing to work, and it's kept me involved in the industry that I really have a passion for. And I've met so many cool people like yourself, you know, through that. So, it's coming up on a year now. And when our talk now plays, it'll certainly be, COVID will have been about a year in the making, probably even a little bit longer at this point. And it's been a wild year, but I never at one moment did I feel unemployed, thankfully, because I was working with Glenn and Anthony. But of course, I'm also not getting paid, so I am on unemployment. So it's a difficult balancing act. So now tell me the name, Hospitality M.D.
Sure.
What's the inspiration behind? I'm assuming it stands for hospitality medical doctor, because what else am I supposed to assume?
It does.
Give us the inspiration, how that name came about.
I wish I had like this groundbreaking story about how the name came out. I don't. It was basically like, what do we name our little hospitality venture here? And I actually, one of my proudest moments and accomplishments is coming up with the name Hospitality M.D. I think it's just killer. I love it. Coming up with the logo idea, which is the pineapple with the like medical snake wrapped around the thing with the two. I think it looks dope, and it's like both hospitality and medical. I think it's great. And then our tagline, hospitality is everyone's business, is kind of like a three-pronged meaning, which is one, hospitality is everyone's business in terms of literally industry. You're a librarian, you are in the hospitality industry, grocery store clerk, all that stuff. Number two, hospitality is everyone's business. They say like, mind your own business. Well, hospitality is your business. You should mind it. You should be aware of it. You should embrace it. And then three, when it comes to hotels specifically, hospitality is not just the business of your front desk agents and bartenders. It is the business of ownership, C-suite executives, etc. So that's kind of where that comes into play. And so I think one thing that we've done well with Hospitality MD, if I had to choose one, it would be the name, the logo, and the tagline. I will say that branding is pretty solid in my opinion.
I agree. No, it stands out. It definitely stands out. It's like hospitality medical doctor. What's that mean? And then you want to find out, right? And you get more involved and you get into the show. And that's what you're trying to do with the name and the logo, is to get people to get interested in the show, find out about you, and then hopefully they like what you're doing and you stay there, right? I mean, listen, Be My Guest as the name of my show is no magical formula itself. This is a true story. I created it in the shower, and not created, I should say, but I think my daughter had just finished watching Beauty and the Beast, and subconsciously that song was in my head. And I'm in the shower and like, you know what? This is what I'm going to call it. Because originally, all right, state secret here, guys. So pay attention. The original working name of the show was going to be Line Level, and the idea of line level employees and talking to people. And that was the working title up until the morning of the first show when I was taking a shower. I said, you know what? It's going to be My Guest instead. And you guys can leave me comments and let me know if I made the right decision. I don't even know if I have, but let me know on iTunes, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all the places you can get Be My Guest. See how I plugged that right there? You see that transition, folks? I learned that from the best, Glenn Houseman, the best transitioner there is. You'll be amazed at how he can turn a full Resorts World Casino conversation into a way to save on your taxes. He just did it today.
I caught that really, really good. And he can take any one of Anthony's rants and bring it right back.
Turn it to an ad. So
yeah, right. And you definitely successfully did that pretty well. I will say though, David, both of the names are really, 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 really good. I like Line Level too, because it has its own like rawness to it. But Be My Guest is great too, because at least you have room to talk to anybody of any level in the hospitality industry. Now it opens it up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. That's I'm glad to hear someone of your creative genius is on my side. So that's a good thing. So Kyle, we're wrapping up here. So give us in the words of my friend Glenn, give us a shameless plug. How can people find Hospitality MD? How can they get in contact with you? What are they going to expect when they listen to your show? And why should they be subscribing to you? Because if you haven't, honestly, you should be.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity to plug a little bit. So Hospitality MD is all things hospitality. We're primarily we're rooms division people. So we just love getting down and dirty into just the true meaning of hospitality. The story that I've shared here with David. And this is the kind of rhetoric that we're talking about on Hospitality MD. Very similar. We love telling stories. We love learning from people. You can find us on YouTube. We're actually trying to grow our YouTube channel right now. So subscribe at Hospitality MD. Just search it. We have our website, www.hospitality-md.com, because we also offer hotel consulting and management services as part of our entrepreneurial venture now. But we are still media driven, and we're here. We do LinkedIn Live every Friday at 11. Hit me up on LinkedIn, email me, kyle@hospitality-md.com. Let's just all support each other. We love this industry. And if you listen to David's show, I know you'll find some value out of our show. Maybe you can even start by learning more about David and tuning into where I interviewed him. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. If you do enjoy this show, Kyle's doing something very similar in terms of interviewing a lot of great people. So check it out. I think you'll enjoy his show as well.
Yeah, definitely. And David, thank you so much, man.
Kyle, I appreciate you coming on and being as honest as you were. You were very honest. You talked about some stuff where you feel you slipped up and you recovered from it. You talked about a very surreal and scary incident. So I really appreciate you coming and opening yourself up the way you have.
Yeah, I don't think I've shared that with my audience yet either. So you're hearing it for the first time here.
Exclusive. What is it? Where's the breaking news logo? Glenn's got the sound effect box in his room. Damn it.
That's awesome.
Thanks so much, Kyle. I really appreciate your time today, my friend.
Cool, David. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. I actually got another interview I'm going to get to. So see you later.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Oh, man, what a great interview that was. I mean, Kyle Allison, again, Hospitality MD. Check him out on all the different channels. He's got a really great show. I enjoyed my time on his show as a guest. And again, it's probably a lot very similar to what we're doing here. So if you like my show, definitely check him out. Definitely check out Resorts World Catskills. Again, recorded this in February. It probably won't play until April, May. So this will be gone behind me. Although there's some great skiing up here, it really is a really fun, family-friendly adventure. There's actually a indoor water park I can see from my room that's currently closed, but will be opening up shortly as well. So a lot of things up here: casino, event space, great steakhouse, indoor water park. There's a Topgolf swing suite over there. Just so much to do around here, all about 90 minutes outside of Manhattan in one of the places. And you can see the view behind me. I mean, you can't beat some of the views around here. So with all that said, thank you all for being my guest. I really appreciate you joining me again. Check us out on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify. Subscribe, like, comment. Most importantly, comment. I really want to keep getting some good feedback or bad feedback. You hate the show? Let me know. I want to do better. We're always open to improving. So until next week, I will talk to you later. We have another great guest coming back next week. And again, if you want to be my guest, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I would love to have you on. Have a great week, everyone.